Mage Knight is a tabletop miniatures game set in a world of high fantasy. In this incredibly original concept, you take on the role of a general commanding an army of troops. Your objective? To beat up the opposing army on the other side of the table, of course. Mage Knight was one of the first miniatures games to really be targeted towards the more casual tabletop player. Previous minis games had a reputation for being rather complicated, which was arguably true, and really expensive to get into, which was definitely true. In addition, figures would have to be painted by the person who bought them. They usually came as a plain pewter or resin, depending on the cost. This was cool because it allowed everyone's army to be unique, but if you were like me and couldn't paint to save your life, especially on tiny figures, it meant that your army would be a boring monochrome laughingstock. By not painting your figures, you painted yourself as a noob. Mage Knight changed all this by being far more accessible. Instead of dropping upwards of $100 on your first army, you could get an entire starter set of Mage Knight for around $25. All the figures that came in the set were made of plastic, so they lacked some of the fit and finish of other minis games at the time, but they were also pre-painted, so that made them cool looking. Most of the time. The feature that really put Mage Knight on the map back when it first came out in 2000, though, was the combat dial. If you've got a key now, you've probably noticed that all the stands the figures are attached to have a bunch of numbers on them. Well, these numbers were how you played the game. Unlike most other miniatures games at the time, which all had the figure's stats on a separate card that needed to be tracked manually, Mage Knight put everything on the dial, being able to see speed, attack power, defense, and damage in a little L-shaped cutout on the stand. This made it far easier to keep track of your collection, as losing a card didn't mean your figure was worth shit, since this was back before the days when the internet was a smartphone glance away, and went even further towards broadening Mage Knight's appeal. It had a dumb name though. Like, I know it's phonetically pleasing, but what do you mean, Mage Knight? I know what a mage is, and I know what a knight is. Are you saying that there is a mage fighting a knight? Are a mage and a knight having drinks together at a bar? Is there one dude so strong he is both a mage and a knight? I don't know, fuck it, this game is old. Apparently, back in the day, we were dumb as fuck. I was in high school at the time, so I know I was sure dumb. The game had hundreds of figures to collect of all sorts, organized into factions. You could mix and match any figures you wanted in an army, but playing primarily a single faction gave you some extra bonuses in the game. The factions themselves ran the gamut too, from fantasy stables like orcs, trolls, zombies, vampires, and elves, to technomancers calling themselves the Atlantis Guild, steampunk-inspired terrorists called the Black Powder Rebels, and my personal favorite, the extremely powerful half-dragon battle mages called Draconum. Mage Knight had a faction that appealed to everyone, and it was easy to pick and collect around a favorite, unless you're like me and like the Draconum. Those things were super rare, and only rare. You began the game by agreeing on an army size with your opponent, usually in increments of 100, then built up your army based around that point value, picking out units from your collection that best fit into that number. Each figure had a point value printed on them. The higher the value, the more powerful the figure. This meant that armies could range in size from a few figures to a few dozen, based on the point size you were playing with, and whether you were shooting for swarming a guy with numbers or having a few big guns. Point total was also important in determining how turns worked. For each 100 points a game was, each player would get that many actions. So a 200-point game would allow each player 2 actions per their turn. Actions included moving a unit, attacking an opposing unit, healing one of your units, and certain other less used actions. Those were the big ones. To attack another figure, you rolled 2 dice and added to your figure's attack value. If the result was higher than the target's defense, the attack was a success, and you dealt damage equal to your damage value. As a figure took damage, you turned the dial and it clicked, and the stats were automatically updated to reflect the unit's wounds. If a figure took enough clicks of damage, the numbers would turn into skulls, which meant he was dead as fuck, and the attacking player gained the amount of points that figure was worth. Battles usually lasted between 30 minutes to an hour, and whoever had the most points once time ran out was the winner. Combat mechanics ran a bit deeper than dice and basic math, though. The colors around each number reflected a special power a figure had. Depending on what color was on what value, it represented a different ability. For example, on this figure, the orange on the speed means flying, while the orange on the defense value means toughness. These abilities could range from reducing damage from enemy attacks, allowing a figure to move and attack in the same action, attack multiple targets at once, heal friendly figures, counterattack when hit, or dodge attacks altogether. The powers and abilities were the key to making Mage Knight as fun as it was, as certain figures with certain powers worked really well together, and allowed for armies to have completely different strategies. Figuring out those combinations was the most effective path to victory. For all its fun though, Mage Knight was totally designed to be a money trap. Despite being a miniatures game, Mage Knight was sold more like a collectible card game, with starter packs and randomized booster packs, meaning you never knew what figures you were going to get, forcing repeat purchases if you needed a specific guy in your collection. In addition to the normal units, there were also special figures called Uniques that were super powerful, but really hard to find. Think of them like mythic rares if you play Magic, or whatever the Ultra Omega Super Duper Rare cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are. I can't remember them right now. The game is dumb anyway. Hashtag fuck Konami. Of course, the only way to get uniques was to just keep buying packs and hope you got lucky. Even starter sets, because unlike every other collectible game ever made, the starter sets were randomized too, so you could get something really good to start off your collection, or something stupid, like Werebear. Or Wood Golem. I can't tell you how many of these stupid packs I bought as a kid trying to find Draconum. Those guys were still the coolest. But they were also almost all uniques. And this shit wasn't cheap either. When I said it was cheap in the beginning of this video, I meant in comparison to other miniatures games. Booster packs were $7 a pop and only came with 4 figures. $7 is like 3 days worth of skipped school lunches, man. These kids fucked me up good. I mean, look at this shit. I go on the internet just to find some information about Mage Knight because I haven't thought about the game in like 10 years. And I find myself on eBay buying a bunch of unopened packs from a game that hasn't been made in 10 years. Even now, the addiction is still there, just lying dormant. You fucking bastards. Let's see what we got. It's actually pretty exciting because I haven't opened one of these since high school, which is a long time for all of you people who are actually in high school right now. Oh yeah. I've forgotten that these pieces actually come in plastic. Ooh, a strong Darkwing zombie. A standard Galishi emissary. My buddy Zach used these guys all the time. He played orcs. Oh shit! Paladin Priest. That's a unique. That's a rarity 6. This is an Elven unique. Wow. I didn't expect to get a unique so quickly. But yeah, this guy's awesome. He's a great healer and he's a good defender. Damn. That's worth the money I paid already. Oh, Kasman Gunner, right? Kasman Sniper. Or Kamzan Sniper. It's been a while since I used these guys. These guys are a pain in the ass. They have 14 range. They can snipe really far, but they have what's called limited invisibility, which means they can't be the target of ranged combat actions. So you gotta like walk all the way up and take all their hits. Alright, so that's pack 1, and we already got a unique, so I'm already happy. So this is all just icing on the cake. Alright, pack number 2. This is gonna be weird. I'm gonna smell the pack, because when you open up magic cards, there's like that new magic smell. It just smells dusty and murky and old. Zandreesen Sailor. This is actually the faction I play, the Atlantis Guild, or played back in the day. Glade Guardian, a little wolf guy. He's kind of cool. Flayed Lord. This is actually a good figure. This is a strong version too. Rarity 5. Not a unique, but pretty good. Uniques are usually the 3rd slot of a pack, so it's probably not unique in this box. That's not a unique either, but it is a Crystal Protector, which is actually a decent figure because she has healing. All right, last one. Can we get 2 uniques? Probably not. The odds of getting a unique is 1 in 6, so to get 2 in 3 packs would be incredibly lucky. In fact, even just getting 1 was already beating the odds. Elven Acolyte. This guy's good. He has magic healing. So, regular healing, you have to be in base contact. Magic healing, you can use healing as a ranged attack. Whoa! Chimera Worm. This guy's crazy. He's a mage spawn, so he has no affiliation, but he's a strong version. For 60 points, he's pretty good. Damn, his dial is completely full, too. Yeah, this guy's solid as fuck. For 60 points? 11 attack and 17 defense with toughness at 60 points? Pretty good. Alright, number 3 is Solanavi Channeler. This is a good figure. Another magic healing. This guy has 12 range. All the Solanavi, which is like a race of creatures in the game, were really good. The Solanavi and the Draconum were like the 2 like high-level, high-tier figures. And last but not least is another Crystal Protector. And that's it. Those are the packs. The Paladin Priest is the highlight of the pulls. I'm actually surprised I got a unique in 3 packs. Again, that beats the odds. But that's pretty cool. Fucking addicted to these damn things. Eventually, though, I moved on to other things as a kid, and Mage Knight kind of fizzled out. I remember WizKids revamping Mage Knight in 2004 with Mage Knight 2.0, reworking a lot of the mechanics and adding stuff like equipable weapons for uniques, but it fell flat at my local game store, and with the Mage Knight faithful in general, people just didn't take too well to these changes, and I wasn't hardcore enough or involved enough with the game at that point to really understand why. As a result, Mage Knight died a few years after 2.0 was released, and none of its features were adopted by WizKids, the guys who made this game, into their other combat dial games out of the time. Mech Warrior, a futuristic mech combat game based on the Battletech universe, which itself died out about a year after Mage Knight, and HeroClix, a comic book-inspired offshoot which surprisingly is still going strong today. Actually, to be fair, right now Mage Knight itself lives on in a new form, as a more traditional tabletop board game. I haven't played it myself, as it's a $70 buy-in, and to be honest, from what I've seen, it just doesn't resonate with me the way the classic Mage Knight does. Collecting your favorite faction and building your armies was the key to the game's appeal, and you begin to personally identify with your faction and figures of choice. None of those aspects are really represented in the Mage Knight board game, at least to my knowledge, so I haven't really been interested. So overall, even 15 years later, Mage Knight is still the coolest. With the combat dial and the pre-painted figures, it opened up the floodgates towards making collectible miniatures games more approachable and affordable for the casual player, one of which at the time happened to be me. I still have a lot of my fondest memories of middle and high school getting my ass kicked in Mage Knight tournaments at my local game shop, and taking a few weeks to get back into it for this video reminded me how awesome a game it truly was. Even if they were still expensive as hell. If you never played Mage Knight before, do it. It's fun. You can find pieces really cheap on eBay. People are selling their collections left and right. But if you pull any Draconum, give them to me. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to all these guys here who are supporting this channel and me on Patreon. Without these guys' help, this channel wouldn't happen, this video wouldn't have gotten made, and you wouldn't be watching this hopefully fun content. So if you see any of these guys in the comments, definitely show them some love for making this video happen. If you would like to have your name on this list and help keep the show going, definitely check the link in the description to my Patreon page where you can help support me and keep more content like this coming. I promise I won't spend it on Draconum. So that's all I got for this video. Give it a thumbs up if that was good, or give it a thumbs down if you thought it friggin' sucked. Let me know in the comments if you guys ever played Mage Knight before, even the original tabletop game or the new board game that's in production today. If you played them both, let me know how they compare. If you only played one or the other, let me know what your experiences with them were. I'll be joining in the discussion below. Until next time, I'm Tommy Oliver. Stay curious.